Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Alumni House Podcast. My name is Quacker, and this is a little bit different tonight. This is a solo episode for us. Matt will be joining us again on Thursday night, so for the time being, it's just me. I hope that's okay with everybody. If not, oh well, it's still just me. So we're going to hop on right into some news and notes for the college football week. Auburn is moving its 2026 home game against Baylor to Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium for NIL benefits as part of an arrangement with the Aflac kickoff game. It's a first in college football for college football neutral site games. The Peach Bowl will coordinate with Aflac to provide opportunities for promotional appearances for Auburn players, promoting ticket sales and ancillary events. So, like meet and greets, things like that. Opportunities for maybe fans come up and talk to players, coaches, things like that. Next thing, this is kind of a short on news. Just only have one other news item here, and that's preseason 1 and 2. Texas and Penn State have both fallen out of the top 25. So we're 6 weeks in, and both of them had pretty bad losses, and so they're gone. And now we're going to hop on into the games for that we're going to review from Week 6. And we're going to start out in Conference USA, where we normally start out. So we're going to start out with Western Kentucky going over to Delaware for a conference matchup. And, boy, this was a good game. Delaware started out with the lead. They had a 7-0 lead after the first quarter. Western Kentucky and Delaware traded scores in the second quarter. It was 17-10 at halftime. Excuse me. In the third quarter, Western Kentucky kind of come out, and I'm not gonna say they took control completely, but they came out and they scored 17, went up by 2 touchdowns. I'm sorry, they went up by 10. And then in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, Delaware scored a touchdown to pull up to within 3. And they had several opportunities in the fourth quarter to come back and tie the game or even take the lead. But they couldn't convert. They had a 11-play drive that only covered 33 yards. It was a turnover on downs. Western Kentucky, they had the ball for 6 plays, only covered 20 yards. They had to punt, and then Delaware got it back. Had a 6-play drive that covered 70 yards, and they missed a field goal there as time expired. That would have tied the game and sent the game to overtime, but they missed a field goal. So that drops Delaware to 1-1 in conference play. Western Kentucky's now 3-0 in conference play. So Western Kentucky's red hot in Conference USA. Looking at the standings real quick, they have a 1-game lead over Louisiana Tech, and that's the next closest. Kennesaw State and Jacksonville State are both sitting at 1-0 in conference play. Then you got Delaware, New Mexico State at 1-1. Everybody else in the conference is over in the conference. Let's see. It looks like FIU, Missouri State, Liberty, Middle Tennessee, and UTEP are all 0-1, and then Sam Houston is bringing up the rear at 0-2, and they're 0-5 overall. So it's going to be a Herculean effort for Sam Houston to turn their season around here. But as for Western Kentucky and Delaware, this is a great game. This is what we expected out of this game. I think Matt and I both picked, let's see. Yeah, we both picked Delaware to win this game, but we both thought this was going to be a close game. So good job out of the Hilltoppers to come through and pull out the win. And continue the season undefeated in conference play. That's all you can ask for as a coach, is to go 1-0 every week. They continue that in conference play. And, well, you know, they keep it on, they'll have a chance to play for the conference title. And the way they're playing, perhaps a spot in the playoff. We'll have to see. It's still early in the season. But, you know, we're getting to that point where things can start kind of heating up here, because we're moving into week 7 here in college football. So it's something to kind of keep an eye on here moving forward. Now we're going to move on into the American Conference. I think we have, let's see, we've got 3 games we'll talk about in the American. And we're going to start out with Air Force at Navy, and this is part of the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. So for those who are listening who aren't familiar with the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, it's a trophy that's played between Air Force, Navy, and Army. The winner of the trophy is the team who has the best record between the 3 schools. So if Navy beats Army, they'll be 2-0 in the Service Academy games. Navy will walk away with the Commander-in-Chief Trophy for this year. Air Force actually has the most at 17. I think it's Navy is in second and Army is in third. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember seeing Air Force was number 1 there in the trophies. Now this is a really good game. This is one that was kind of back and forth. It started out Air Force was in the lead. They had lead after first quarter. Navy in the second quarter came out and put up 2 touchdowns and held Air Force to a single field goal. Now that our Air Force, you know, they came out and went right down the field, scored a touchdown on their opening drive, and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a shootout, and it kind of was. But I thought Navy could be in trouble. But Navy surprised me in this game. They opened up the passing game. Like, they weren't running the ball like they normally do. They were throwing the ball. Blake Horvath threw for 339 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. It was 20 of 26, so he had a really good game through the air. So it's good to see Navy kind of open it up. You know, we thought we would see kind of a ground attack game here, and it wound up being an aerial bombardment from both teams. So at the half, it was 17-10 Navy. In the third quarter, they traded touchdowns. In the fourth quarter, Navy scored 2 touchdowns. Air Force scored 2 touchdowns, while Navy scored a touchdown and a field goal. But they were able to do just enough to hold on for the win. And like I said, this was a game where Blake Horvath, he had probably a career best as far as passing yards. He had 339 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. zero interceptions, and had a 71.2 QBR, which means he played very, very well. And then he was also the leading rusher for the midshipmen with 17 carries and 130 yards. Next closest on the team had 31 yards on 3 carries. So kind of a different game for the midshipmen here. And then receiving, Eli Hendrick had 8 receptions for 243 yards and 3 touchdowns. I believe he is the all-time leading receiver for Navy. He just kind of added on to that this week with his numbers here. So this is a great game. Very very fun to watch. It's very back and forth, and it really did kind of come down to the very end. Then we go to from Maryland right on over to Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. Pretty short drive for UTSA coming into Temple. This is the game. It started out, it looked like UTSA was going to kind of run away with this one, and that's not what happened at all. So it opened up UTSA with the touchdown in the first quarter, holding Temple to just a field goal. Second quarter, again, UTSA scored a touchdown, only one, and they kept Temple off the board. The third quarter is where things came off the rails a little bit for UTSA. They scored a touchdown. Temple scored 3. So where they've been leading the whole game, all of a sudden they were trailing, and they were able to hold Temple to a single field goal in the fourth quarter. But they wound up losing by 6, 27-21. Owen McCown had a pretty decent game. He was 25 of 37, 234 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was kind of a defensive game. It doesn't sound like it, but it was kind of a defensive game as far as how Temple won the game, because they forced 2 turnovers from UTSA, and let's see if I can find the. Yeah, it was McCown. They forced 2 interceptions from him. I couldn't remember if it was interceptions or fumbles. So it was 2 interceptions. So he had 234 through the air and 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 picks, and Temple was able to capitalize on that, and that wound up being the difference in the game. Those 2 stalled drives that stalled out because of turnovers wound up being the difference in the win and loss here. So that puts UTSA at 2-3 overall, 0-1 in conference, and Temple at 3-2, 1-0 in conference. So Temple is on the right side here. I really thought UTSA was going to be a team that would be competing for the conference title this year. They're going to have to pick it up and play a lot better from here on out if they want to do that, because while there's not a lot of separation at the moment. Well, I say that in Navy's 3-0, but it's still a closable gap for UTSA, but they're going to have to really pick up their play from here on out if they are going to have a chance to compete for the American title for this year. Our next game, Florida Atlantic went to Houston to take on Rice. And Florida Atlantic kind of came in and, they weren't picked to win this game. They had a losing record coming in. They were 1-3 coming in, 0-1 in conference play. Rice was 3-2, 1-1 in conference play. Florida Atlantic kind of came in and kind of controlled the game from Jump Street. It was 14-7 after the first quarter. They extended their lead to a 10-point lead at the half with the field goal in the second quarter, so it was 17-7. Third quarter, both teams traded field goals. In the fourth quarter, Florida Atlantic got a field goal while Rice got a touchdown. The passing game for FAU really kind of led the way. This guy's named Caden Veltkamp is a quarterback for FAU. He had 290 passing yards. The FAU had 2 turnovers, but that didn't end up hurting them in the game. There we go. All right, so Veltkamp had 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and then they had a fumble from Easton Messer, receiver, who was the leading receiver. Didn't score a touchdown, but he had 11 receptions for 110 yards. For Rice, the run game is really what was carrying them, and I think that's kind of been their MO for the season. Has been the run game has been their bell cow for them. They had 48 rush attempts, 213 yards, but they weren't able to pull ahead in this game, even with the 2 turnovers they caused. They didn't have any turnovers in the game themselves, but they just weren't able to capitalize on the turnovers that they created from Florida Atlantic. So Florida Atlantic holds on for the close win. It's funny you had two games here with the same score, and teams with similar records in it. So we're going to move on to the Sun Belt now. We've got again 3 games here. We're going to talk about. We had one really good game here in the conference. But we're going to start out with Oregon State traveling over to Boone, North Carolina. So they had to travel all the way across country for this game. Oregon State came in 0-5. App State was 3-1. And Oregon State won the game 27-23. Looks like it was a really good game. It was 27-23 was the final score, like I said. App State opened up with 17-0 lead in the first quarter. And they allowed Oregon State to kind of get back in the game. But they scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter to close it to within a field goal lead at the half for App State. And then App State was able to put up a touchdown and a field goal in the third quarter. Oregon State was able to get a touchdown of their own to make it 27-21. And in the fourth quarter, Oregon State got a safety to add 2 points to the score here to make it 27-23. They still would have had to have had a touchdown at the end of the game to win the game. So I was trying to see what kind of play this was that caused the safety here. It was fumble recovery in the end zone by the App State team, and that caused the safety here. But it was very, very late in the game, and the way that the defense kind of played throughout the game, it was just enough to keep the Oregon State Beavers from driving down to score there at the end. In fact, they intercepted the Oregon State quarterback there to end the game. They just had to kneel down to run out the clock. Now, the game that was such a good game was Texas State, 3-2. They're 0-1 in conference play, going over to Arkansas, Jonesboro, Arkansas, to play Arkansas State, who was 2-4 and is now 1-1 in conference play. Arkansas State squeaks one out, 31-30. It was really tied the entire game. It was 7-7 after the first quarter, 10-10 at halftime. Nobody scored a point in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, both teams went off with both teams scoring, looks like 3 touchdowns apiece in the fourth quarter, and it looks like yeah. So yeah, the Bobcats missed the extra point on their third touchdown. And this touchdown gave them the lead, and then Arkansas State came back down and scored a touchdown to win the game with 7 seconds left on the clock. So, like I say, very close game. Would have been a fun one to watch from beginning to end. If you were at that game, you saw a good one. You know, Texas State is one of those. They were picked to kind of be one of the conference favorites going into the season. You know, they're leaving after this year, headed to the Pac-12. So this is kind of their swan song. Well, not kind of. This is their swan song season in the Sun Belt. You know, and they played a good game. Their quarterback had 230 yards passing. He also ran for 131 yards. The team ran for 289 yards as a unit. They outgained the Arkansas State team by over 100 yards. And yards aren't the end-all be-all as far as deciding who wins the game, but sometimes it's a good indication of how dominant the team has been. And this is just a game where Arkansas State, they made the plays they needed to make when they needed them. And Texas State, and they were too. Their field goal kicker, unfortunate for them, missed the extra point. And that's just as important as the rest of it, and it came back to bite them in this game. But this is a really good game. I wish I could have watched this one. I was watching some other stuff at the time, but I really missed a really good one there. And then the final one in the Sun Belt, we're going to talk about South Alabama went to Troy. Now this is a trophy game, and I'm trying to remember the name. I've got it written down somewhere, and I can't. Oh, here. Let's see. Is it in this one? It's not in this one. All right, let me look this up real quick, because I know it's a trophy game, and they were talking about it afterwards. It's called the Battle for the Belt, and it's a literal belt. It looks like a wrestling belt that was introduced in 2015. It's got both teams' logos on it, and it literally just says Battle for the Belt Champion. It's just a wrestling belt. That's all it is. But it's cool. This is one of those things that it amplifies a good rivalry. It's just a little something extra for the teams to play for. Something that that they can point to as a little extra pride. Especially in the fans love it too. It's something for the fans to talk about. We have this, this trophy for this year, or have this belt for this year, or whatever it is. And this one went to overtime. It started out 7-7 in the first quarter. Troy came back in the second quarter and took a touchdown lead into the half. South Alabama came out in the third quarter, scored 10 to Troy's 7. So they were still trailing by 4. In the fourth quarter, South Alabama scored a touchdown, and Troy scored a field goal to keep it knotted up at 24. It went to overtime. South Alabama did not score, whereas Troy did. They scored a touchdown, and that was the difference in the game. Let's see, it was South Alabama. Their quarterback did not play a great game. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns passing, but he only had 104 yards through the air. The ground game is where the Jaguars shined. They had 265 yards on the ground. It's 3 touchdowns. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. So, Troy, their ground game, they were very balanced throughout. Quarterback had 203 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. They did have a turnover with an interception. The rushing game, this is another one where the quarterback was the leading rusher for the team as well. He had 102 yards rushing on 19 carries, with another touchdown to his name on that. They had 217 yards on the ground. It's a very balanced attack from Troy throughout the game. So in overtime, Troy got the ball first, which is not normally what you want. If you're in college, you want the ball second, so you know what you need to do. But they made the most of it. 3 plays, they scored a touchdown, and then they kept South Alabama off the scoreboard. They ran 7 plays, never got anywhere. So good win by Troy. I think they keep the belt is what I saw. Another. It's always good to beat your rival. South Alabama's not having a good season. They're 1-5 overall, 0-2 in conference. Troy's 3-2, 1-0 in conference. That's what really matters here. Is it's a conference win, but it also helps to sweeten the pot that it's also a conference victory, a rivalry win on top of that. So now we're going to jump to the ACC here. We're going to have two games to talk about, but boy, here's the two really good games here. We're going to start out with number 24 Virginia went to Louisville, who was undefeated at the time. And boy, this was a game. This is a really, really good game. This is one that I remember me and Matt talking about it and having trouble trying to decide. Like, we were both trying to go back and forth on who we thought, we would win the game, who we would pick, and by the score of the game, that was a justified reason to go back and forth on it. Virginia won the game 30-27, but it took them overtime to do it. So first quarter was 7-7. Second quarter was 14-14. You got to the third quarter, Virginia opened up a 10-point lead, but then Louisville erased it in the fourth quarter. And then when they went into overtime, Louisville had to kick a field goal, so they took they had the ball first. They kicked a field goal, had a 3-point lead, and then Virginia scored a touchdown on theirs. They didn't kick the extra point because there was no need to. But this was a game that was back and forth the entire time. Like, when you hit the 10-point lead in the third quarter, if you're Virginia, you're thinking we finally have something going here. Finally have some momentum. We have the lead here, and that was not the case at all. Miller Moss did a great job. He left USC after last year, transferred to Louisville. Did a great job with the passing game. Great job getting Louisville back in the game. This has been one of those things where, like, Virginia has been playing great offensively this season. This was not an offensive game for them. They had 2 offensive touchdowns. The quarterback, Chandler Morris, had 149 yards passing with 1 touchdown. They had 88 yards rushing as a team. 88. You get Louisville. Miller Moss had 329 yards passing with 2 touchdowns. He did have an interception, and that interception was a pick 6. So that was that was really what made the difference in the game, because if he had not thrown that pick 6, and it looked like he was down. Like, I saw the play, it looked like his knee was down, and then he threw the ball away. They called him that he was still up. He caught and the passes intercepted and run back for the touchdown, and that was in the third quarter, and that gave Virginia the 7-point lead at the time. That was Cam Robinson who scored. I think that was Cam Robinson who scored that one. I don't want to tell you the wrong player that scored a touchdown for him. That was it was Cam Robinson. It's a 47-yard pick 6 for him. Toward the end of the third quarter is when they got their field goal. In the fourth quarter, Louisville, they opened up with the touchdown. Miller Moss to Chris Bell, 13 yards for a touchdown. And then a 50-yard field goal to tie it up with 1:08 left in the game. All right, and then in the overtime, he had Jamari Taylor, who ran in from 2 yards out. I think it was like it was kind of a trick play that they ran, and it was very, very clever play design that I saw, and it was a walk-off touchdown for Virginia. they continue on in the ACC undefeated. Louisville is sitting at 1-1. Virginia's 5-1 overall, 3-0 in conference play. Louisville is 4-1 overall, 1-1 in conference play. So both these teams are still right there in the running for everything. Virginia, let's see their schedule. Virginia, that may have been their last really hard game for conference left. So there's a very good chance that they want to play in for the conference championship game against Miami at the end of the year, because conference-wise, they have North Carolina, who's not playing well at all right now. Cal, Wake Forest is playing better. Duke is playing pretty well. That will probably be their toughest game left. And then the rivalry game against Virginia Tech. That's always a tough one, but it's at home this year. That makes a little bit of a difference for them. That always helps out to they played at home. Now, Virginia Tech, of course, they fired their head coach a couple weeks ago. So they're not in the best state right now as a program, but they're still dangerous. In fact, they're 1-1 in conference play right now. So, while it's still a few weeks away, it's not something that Virginia can overlook when that time comes. And of course, what probably was the biggest game of the weekend, number 3 Miami went up to Tallahassee to number 18 Florida State, and this was kind of a dump of a game until the fourth quarter. Miami came in, took a 7-3 lead, and this game, in some ways, it kind of mirrored the Mississippi State Texas A&M game, which we'll briefly talk about here in a few minutes. Both games had the same score for a long time. Miami they opened it up late in the second quarter with a touchdown, and it looked like they were going to just kind of walk away with this because they had 2 touchdowns in the third quarter to take a 28-3 lead, and it looked like it was just going to be an easy win. Well, guess what? It wasn't. Florida State scored 19 points in the fourth quarter, and we're a missed onside kick recovery away from having a chance to possibly tie it up or take to win the game there at the very end. So it was something that once Florida State got down, it was hard for them to come back because of their style, because they play a very run heavy style. They're not a pass heavy team. They had to throw the ball a lot in this one. They threw the ball 45 times. Tommy Castellanos was 25 of 45, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, and that really hurt the team. They only had 132 rushing yards, which for them that's a low number. They usually are 200 yards plus with the rushing game. In fact, with the typical Florida State team right now, you'd almost expect those numbers, their passing and rushing yards from this game, to be reversed if it was a typical Florida State game from the season. Carson Beck played a really good game. He was 20 of 27, 241 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Had 89.1 QBR. But Miami did not run the ball well as a team. They only had 97 rushing yards on 32 attempts. So, that was, while they won the game, that didn't help them close the game out easily. But this is one like I said, I was watching this one, and I also had the Mississippi State game on at the same time, so I was kind of going back and forth between them, where my attention was, and for most of the game, Miami was in control, and then that fourth quarter, Florida State kind of came storming back. They had 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and I want to say, yeah, they went for 2 on the first touchdown, and this second drive was 19 plays, and it took them. They had to cover 96 yards to get there, and they went for 2 on that one as well. So they had 2 2-point conversions to put them within a scoring chance. That final drive, they scored. There wasn't a lot of time left because they decided to kick a field goal, and it was 20 seconds left in the game when they kicked the field goal. There was still a chance they could have won the game if everything goes perfectly. Of course, it didn't. Miami holds on. They call themselves Florida State champs for the second consecutive season, and of course, it's hard to, especially this season, hard to dispute that. So, congratulations to the Hurricanes for a great start to the season. They're, like I said, 5-0, but they're only 1-0 in conference play. So this is their first conference game. This drops Florida State to 3-2, 0-2 in conference play. So, it started out looking like a really hot team. They've kind of cooled off here the last couple of weeks, so they're going to have to pick things up here in a hurry. If they want to try to accomplish most of their goals for the season, I don't know if they will be able to do enough to overcome Virginia or Miami at this point, as far as being able to get into the conference championship game this year. But if they win out, there's still a chance they could go into the playoff as a low, like a 16 seed or something like that. So, like I said, there's still plenty of season left to go. 7 more games for them. So, no time to panic if you're Florida State, but you do have to buckle down from here on out. All right, now we're going to swap over to the SEC, and so we'll start with number 16 Vanderbilt traveling to Tuscaloosa to take on number 10 Alabama. And this game started out, it looked like Vandy was maybe going to pull off another upset this year. They opened up with a 7-0 lead. I think they actually had like a 14-0 lead before it. Alabama got on the board. No, okay, I was wrong about that. Vandy had the early 7-0 lead, but Alabama scored a touchdown to start the second quarter after a 12-play, 92-yard drive. But Vandy, they fumbled. They were going in to take a 2-touchdown lead, and Diego Pavia fumbled at the 8-yard line, at the Alabama 8-yard line, and it was recovered by Tim Keenan III for Alabama. And then they turned it around and marched down the field to tie the game. Now, Vandy did retake the lead late in the second quarter. But Alabama would answer right back with the touchdown to end the half. It was, one play left after that where it was just a kneel down from Diego Pavia. In the third quarter, Alabama was held to 2 field goals, and Vandy was still in the game. They just couldn't make the comeback. The defense was playing for Alabama was playing well enough. They intercepted Pavia, got a field goal out of that, and then after forcing a 12-play, 14-yard drive for Vandy that was a turnover on downs, the Crimson Tide would score a touchdown 4 plays later from 28 yards out, and that this was with almost no time left on the clock, and Vandy would have really no time left to do anything at that point. But 16-point win for the Crimson Tide. This is one that, for a long time it kind of felt like maybe Vandy would have a chance, but this Alabama team, not that last year's team was not good, but this team they're kind of finding themselves. This Vandy team has been good, but they haven't really played a caliber team of Alabama this year, and they weren't going to sneak up on Alabama this year like they did last year, especially with it being in Tuscaloosa. So Alabama gets to win. I'm not going to say it was easy, but they get to win. Ty Simpson had a heck of a game, 340 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception. This was his first interception in college. That's kind of weird to think that you would be this deep into a season in a career and only have 1 interception, but this is his first season starting. So he's now 5 games in, and he's only thrown 1 interception. So that's a heck of a start to his season this year. I think he's got like 13 touchdown passes and 1 interception on the season. So good job for him. All right, now next we're going to talk about just briefly the Mississippi State Texas A&M game, and I say briefly because this really was, in the first half, it was a very close game. It was 3-0 Mississippi State after 1 quarter, and A&M didn't score until late in the second quarter to take a 7-3 lead into the half. The third quarter, again, it was very close. Like A&M scored 1 touchdown to increase their lead 14-3. When you get to the fourth quarter, this is kind of where they separated the game. Sorry about that. My throat's getting dry. They put up 17 points in the fourth quarter. A&M did, and they held Mississippi State to 6 points. And I want to say that was a touchdown, and I think they went for 2. And yeah, they went for 2 and they missed it. So 31-9 final score. It was a lot closer for most of the game than what the final score indicated. State played well. Their defense played well. Offensively, they didn't move the ball really well. They had 142 yards passing, only 77 yards on the ground, but they also lost a lot of yardage from Blake Shapen, but that was from him having to scramble to try to make plays and get away from the rush from the A&M defense. Offensive for A&M, they had 483 yards. 303 of that was on the ground. This is a heck of a game for the run game for the Aggies here. I mean, this is one of those things where, as a as an offensive coordinator, this is almost a dream, just to dominate so one-sidedly on this part of the offense. It shortens the game when you run the ball, because the clock doesn't stop as much as it does with incomplete passes and stuff. So it shortens the game, and it also just asserts your dominance. So, like I say, it was a lot closer than the score indicated, but it was still a big win by the Aggies, but it was close until the fourth quarter. All right, last game we're going to talk about here, and this is one. It's probably the biggest upset as far as in the conferences that we cover. It was definitely one of the biggest upsets of the weekend, but not the biggest. Number 9 Texas went to Gainesville and lost to a very bad Florida team, a struggling Florida team. They had a lot of talent on the team, but they're not playing well. Haven't been playing well under Sunbelt Billy here. So Napier, he did what he seems to always do, and that's win a game he wasn't supposed to win. And he kept his job, at least for another week, possibly for a little bit longer than that. It's hard to fire a coach who just beat a top 10 team, even if he loses the next one. But this is a game. It never really felt like Texas had a chance to win this one. They lost by 8, but they weren't really ever in this. Arch, he played well in some spells, but he never looked comfortable. He's missing open throws, and I'm not one who says that he stinks or anything like that. I don't feel that way. I feel like he probably has more pressure on him than any other quarterback in college football right now, because of his last name. And that's it. His last name, and there's a ton of pressure on him to come in to perform the same level as Eli and Peyton and his grandfather, who he's named after. There's a ton of pressure on his shoulders. He's still a young man. He's maybe 20 years old at the oldest. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he's just not handling it well right now. But I think he's going to get better. I think by the end of the season he'll be playing much better. He's just got to get comfortable in his skin. He's got to get comfortable playing on the stage he's playing in, because this is a huge stage. The SEC and the Big Ten are probably the two biggest stages outside of the NFL, as far as football goes. And it's the weight of being a man and the weight of being the quarterback of Texas. That's all weighing on his shoulders right now, and it to me it looks like it, because he just doesn't look comfortable. Even in games where he shouldn't be overwhelmed, he's looked overwhelmed at times, and I don't think it's that he doesn't have it. I really do just feel like it's just all the pressure on him. So, congratulations to Florida. Congratulations to Billy Napier on keeping your job for another week or two. This Gator team has got a lot of talent. Very talented quarterback with DJ Lagway. Played a very efficient game, 21 to 28, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't think he had any interceptions in the game. He had one. He had one interception in the game. And he didn't even run the ball in this game. So he did all this with his arm. So, you know, Florida, they were in control of the game from start to finish. This is a game that they had to have for Billy Napier. I was thinking maybe the team wouldn't play for him, that maybe they'd given up on him, but that's not the case. So for at least another week, Billy stays put in Gainesville. And we'll see what happens this next week. So with that, that'll end the review episode for week 6. Thursday night we'll start week 7. Our preview episode for week 7, and of course on Wednesday night will be the review episode, our Southbound episode. So which is an NFL podcast, and so come join us for that. And until then, have a good night. We'll see you next time.